to Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. This is episode number 27. I'm here today with Marshall Morris. I'm super excited to have him on board. I've been following some of what he's done for a while. I want to go through a little bit of his bio. I don't normally do, an extensive bio, but this stuff is kind of cool. He's the co-founder of Home Life Media, a portfolio of e-commerce and media brands that focus on people and the pets we love. They've donated over $1 million for veterans, and that number may have grown since I grabbed this bio off of LinkedIn, for veterans with PTSD, provided for 30 million meals for shelter pets, and are super proud of being an Inc. 500 and an Inc. 5000 company. I was just talking to a friend of mine who actually I just recorded a podcast with him for a different podcast. I was like, I'm so excited to talk to this guy. I am not a veteran, have never been in the military, but I have a huge respect for it. We're a family of first responders. My daughter's a paramedic in Atlanta. Father-in-law was a fireman. And so like you have the veterans thing that I'm super in love with, and then dogs, how do you go wrong with those things, right? So, So thanks for coming on board. Hey, tell me what you do. I mean, this is extensive. So if this takes 15, 20 minutes to talk about it, go for it. I'm super interested in what you got going on.
Yeah. So I think, really, if I had to generalize into a bucket, we're really a health and wellness company at our core. So, we actually our focus is the health and wellness of people, but we do it a lot of times through pets.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it was really born out of the community. People wanted solutions, and we've always felt frustrated. I think if you think about when you get a product or a service and you just want something more, we saw a lot of that in the pet market. So we decided that we're going to start building products there. But we've always had a heart for mission, and since day one. So we knew that no matter what, a business operating has a power that, unlike other things where it can really create change in the world, in your circle of influence, right? Mm-hmm. So we started at the beginning, really were hey, let's solve problems in pet health and wellness by basically helping your pets live longer. Can we do that, right? And we felt like we could. So we started building stuff there, products and services and supplements. And then during that process, kind of the what things have come out of that. One of them is our veteran program, which has been an incredible journey. We saw early on, the impact that a veteran has with PTSD when they get an animal, like a service animal, and that is the closest thing to a miracle that I've ever seen. It just is. It's legacy. It's changing their lives, their inner circle life, their family, right, their kids, generational. And so we're we're already in the pet space, and veteran, if we can help these guys, we're going to do it. So we build a mission out of that, and that's absolutely taken off. So, for us, like I said, anything in health and wellness really is our focus. We started at pets, but we also look at the end user too. Are we able to make their quality of life better because we're supporting the health and wellness of pets that they have? In the veterans, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we get to help guys to serve us, and it's an honor to be able to do that.
And so you do that through. So I've got my paracord bracelet from Hero Company. I actually just ordered one of the more link-based ones too. That should be coming any day now. So what does the Hero Company site do? I mean, I'm interested in everything, but just because I brought that up, tell me more about that company and what that does in particular.
Yeah, so we learned. So the genesis of that company came around the fact that most veterans, after kind of the last 20 years of war, right? We have a lot of veterans still home with some level of PTSD, it's documented, and we saw that the training for these dogs, some veterans have extreme cases where the training that they need, their dog might need to be trained for 3 years.
Oh wow.
This isn't a funded program. The VA just started trying to figure this out, but they're on their own. So,
because it's not VA is not widely known for excellent care and forward thinking, right?
It's like the DMV. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. and this is a whole other thing. I mean, this is like not even people, this is a subset of that, right? What we found really is these guys need a battle buddy. That's it. They need a battle buddy. They need a purpose. And so sometimes they come home and they need something to help them daily with purpose in a different way. And so we said, okay, what do we do? Like, we got to do something. Like, we saw the impact. We're like, okay, these guys, they can't afford 30, 40, 50 grand, some of them, these things. And so it's like, well, there's so many that need this. So we said, all right, well, we're going to build products that are more tactical or everyday carry or military related, and we're going to sell them, and we're going to use that as a way to fund this program. Okay. And so Paracord was an all-purpose tool, and we felt like, hey, let's build some Paracord jewelry, basically men's bracelets, right, to start. But more importantly, you're getting a Paracord bracelet, and we do the best to create a great product, but more importantly, look what we can do together. That was really the mission. They need it, and we're going to step into it. Someone's got to do it, and we're going to be the ones that lead. And so we launched that, and so we started Paracord basically bracelets, right? So essentially for men. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. And since then, we've added a lot of other things, and the support's incredible. So we see ourselves as really the tip of the spear. So like they service overseas, and we're trying to serve them here at home. Right. So we have it's really more of an apparel company in a way, right? We do men's Paracord bracelets. We do kind of like more like what I consider micro jewelry style bracelets. Yeah. Things that men can wear, because we're demonstrating support for veterans every time you wear one. So it's like you get something that you enjoy that's cool, and then in addition, we're really helping veterans who need the help. There's nowhere else they're going to get it. So
yeah, because they have like this one in particular has an American flag on it. It has never forgotten on there, and it's kind of a paracord, and it's it's a big bracelet. I wear a big watch, so it matches that, but it's got kind of a masculine feel to it, because there's something about jewelry and men that like has to be done a certain way, right? Like it has to be like cool, and that's where, like you said, it's kind of that biker, a little bit of that biker feel to it.
Yeah, it's like the word jewelry, even in the context of men, is a hard word to use. But so we think about it. It's more of we use the word apparel a lot, and also everyday carry, because we're rolling out wallets soon, some wallets we've designed in-house, things like that. Like, we're going to expand the line because if we can do more, we're going to do it. And so, but that brand itself is called the Euro Company, as you mentioned. And so from that, the one thing that has been the most surprising about that is the amount of need. We saw a need in our circles. We saw a need with veterans. When we started,
because you're a veteran yourself. You're a veteran yourself, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And so, And so from that, right, like we said, there's a need. We know there's a need. But like the inpouring of supports has been unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's like so many people are really almost crying in silence, needing help, at the kitchen table, needs, like they're just, how do we help? And then for us to step in and say, hey, like, we're partnering with you. Let's do something together. The inbound has been incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And so it's really exciting to be a part of that, to be able to bring that change. You really help those guys who really don't have any other options, right? A lot of times they're isolated, and as men, that's a dark place to be, right? Mm-hmm. They're misunderstood, or there people don't know how to manage that. People who haven't experienced that don't understand, like, what you're going through in your mind. It's all internal, right? Wives notice the difference. Like, one of the biggest things that hit me is we were interviewing a guy that got a service dog, and his wife said, like, we can't go to Home Depot. Like, we can't, like, it's not like we used to go do projects around the house on the weekends, these kind of things you do with your family. And he's like, he gets really anxious around people. Like, it's just, he has this, like, he built in this kind of fight or flight mentality overseas, where he was always on, right? You're always on alert. Like, you could die now, so you're always on. And it's hard to downshift from that if you're experiencing that for a long period of time. And so he's just so she's like, but now when we have a dog, it's like the craziest thing. It's, we do this, like, we do the little stuff, like we go out to eat. Like, you take that for granted, right? Or like just walking down the aisle of Home Depot, you take that for granted. But these guys they're stuck, right? And so this keeps them it gives them a place, but it's also the family. And the wives' stories are always the ones for me that are the most like, just they hit you so hard because they're in the middle, like they didn't sign up for it necessarily, but they're in the middle supporting it, trying to figure out how to help. And we get introduced to Element, aka a pet, literally a dog, and it brings our whole world back together. And it's just a powerful thing. So it's been exciting to be part of that. And it's that brand itself has been growing tremendously. And I'm excited for that because there's so much need.
And what is is it just because I don't, we have 3 dachshunds, which are I always call them the best, worst dogs that you can ever own. I had to kick, usually my 15-year-old dachshund is, he's old and he's usually in here when I'm recording, but he got to be a pain in the ass this morning. So I kicked him out because he was, wanting to get in, wanting to get out. Anyway, so I understand that calming effect, but what's the kind of the mental dynamic that these service dogs do? Because obviously they're like situational awareness, going to Home Depot and there's people everywhere and there's corners here and you can see up at the top, is there a sniper up there or whatever? I'm assuming that's like that situational awareness on overdrive. What is it that the dogs are doing to kind of help ease that a little bit?
Yeah, it's incredible. So there's different levels of trauma, right? So like when you have some people, like there's dogs that will that they're trained to like things like turn the lights on, like or like especially if they're wounded. So say they lost a leg or there's some physical impairment, like the dogs will actually fill that gap. So it could be literally picking up keys. But the biggest thing I've seen, the most powerful, is actually how they break cycles. So like a lot of times what will happen is veterans tend to, really the more extreme cases tend to have some kind of body language that shows they're kind of going in their heads a little bit. Like literally they're just kind of, they feel like they're overwhelmed. It's really that, like it's overwhelmed. And there'll be a signal. So some veterans will grab their face, right? Some, like it depends. The dogs are actually specifically trained for that veteran for that specific use. So like for an example, like, so we had one of the guys, he would just kind of like get overwhelmed and he would grab his face. It's just a natural tendency to grab his face. And that was a time where he was really feeling overwhelmed. They trained the dog to notice that and catch it and start licking him, literally licking his face, like bringing him out of this place. And so like that happens quite a bit where it's like, okay, because they're trained very specifically with the veterans a lot, like a lot of the dogs. Some of them actually are more companion, which still serves a great purpose. Some of them are trained to like the umpteenth degree, like picking up tissues out of a box or like turning lights on or picking up keys or opening the fridge, like things like that. So, but the way that they break cycles is their presence. It's the veteran has to have their mind on the dog always, right? It's like when you have a dog, as you know, you're thinking about them, like where are they at, what are they doing? It gives you kind of something to run on, right? So you're already thinking about your battle buddy, right? And then when you have someone there, the dog's going to help you react better. Like you're almost retraining yourself to react to normal civilian life, right? So it's breaking thought patterns, keeping them from really almost going into, we call it episodes, but it's really more just like they get lost in their mind, they get overwhelmed, and again, their mind is trying to juggle between like, hey, you were over here, this decision is life or death, but here it's not the same thing. But like, where am I? How do I reconcile this, right? So the dogs will break them out of that, however they do it, but they're specific a lot of times for veterans. So like literally they're trained on their habits. They're trained on what habits they need to actually reinforce too. So like the veteran needs to get out of bed. Some veterans, like sometimes like one of the cases was just depression, just like I reconciled this world. And the dog would actually get them out of bed, like literally, let's go. And so it's pretty incredible. Dogs are amazing beings that they can be trained to that level. So so the gamut, it's like there's so many things, but it's really specific to veteran. That's what makes it so powerful. It's not like a one size fits all. It's literally like where's the need, where's their greatest need, and then you train that dog into that. And it radically changes them. I mean, the dog, as we know, they're faithful. Like they'll show up every day they can, right, to like help. So it's the perfect companion, the perfect tool for veteran. to really break through those moments and also like really change their life, kind of come back to a normal, whatever that looks like for them.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, are they, typically we see like battled, like, army dogs are Malinois, German Shepherds, those kind of things. I assume that that's part of the program, but are they also using kind of lots of different breeds and rescues and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's the cool thing is like, so it really comes down to this is a whole fascinating sector that I've learned too, because there are energy levels a big component of that and the ability of the veterans. So Malinois, for example, high energy, high drive, high reward. A lot of veterans that's not their lifestyle, right? Some it is, some it's not. So the trainers do this, like when you're dealing with like a veteran who has a specific case, they literally will pick the pup depending on how it reacts to certain stimulus. Like I've learned, so like they'll take the puppy and they'll turn it upside down. And the way the dog responds gives them an idea of how they're innately wired to handle stress. Okay. Things like that. Or they'll put the dog alone and they'll say, does the dog sit there and wait? Or does the dog just race off? Or does the dog follow its nose? And so there's all these things. Just so like actually finding the right animal for a veteran, especially when you're doing a lot of training, like, years of training, is a science. Like there's the trainers who are doing this are really understanding how the breeds they operate itself. You get a lot of labs in that process just because they tend to be kind of like more calm dogs usually. And then also, but the reality though is that like there's a lot of veterans who really need a battle buddy. So their PTSD may not be like an extreme level, but they really just need a companion. And then you can figure out works. Sometimes they'll have a dog that they can start working on training, gives them purpose to that. Sometimes they can bring a dog in that they can rescue a dog, right? And then that becomes part of their routine. So it depends. So it's all depends on the veteran, but the ones that are trained specifically for veterans, they go through a pretty rigorous process. Starting from how they respond as a puppy, and then they have to graduate. Like some dogs will get into a couple of years, like, all right, well, that's not going to work for that veteran. It'll work for another veteran, right? Because of like they have too high energy drive, right? Or they're more stubborn, which is just there's an innate part of that in some animals, right? So like it's a whole process, but you're really just trying to fit pieces together, knowing that some veterans can manage that, some need more of more like a calmer dog that's a lot more responsive, like those kind of things. So the breed is all across the board. They tend to be bigger dogs by nature, right? Because of presence and space, especially when you're in public places, right? Like a little dog has a different presence than a bigger dog. So they tend to be medium to large dogs. So they lend those breeds, so like labs and GSDs and.
Yeah, those breeds seem to be more compliant. Like I don't think there are a lot of dachshunds in this program. I mean, we've now we have 3 currently. We had 1 that died, so we've had 4 dachshunds, and honestly, one of them is more like a lab. Like he's freaking like muscular and he's very compliant, wants to do what you want. And then the female that we have literally you can see her thinking about whether or not she wants to entertain whatever it is that you just asked her to. Yeah. Like she's literally is like deciding if it's in her best interest to do what you want to do. But like even temperament is weird because like the boy dog that's more compliant, if you try to turn him upside down, he freaks out. Like he hates it. But the female, if you hold her like a baby, there is like something that happens to her where she almost like half dies. Like she literally she goes kind of catatonic and all that. So, I don't think dachshunds would make a very good animal for this particular thing, just because they're kind of a pain in the ass. But
yeah. And again, I think that we're seeing in the programs again but some veterans will have their own dog, but they tend to. I would say in most cases you're looking at kind of medium to large dog, and then your certain breeds that just lend themselves better to that, depending on energy levels and things like that. But there's also this whole like if you have a service dog that performs really well, they may carry that genetic into the next right on purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So there's because they tend to feel like they can predict more of the temperament genetically, because you have an environmental factor, but you also have a genetic factor as well.
Right. Yeah. Because you can definitely put those traits in, and I mean, again, that's one of the reasons why a Malinois or something like that, who is very, that's why they make great combat dogs, right? I was watching a video yesterday of, the Malinois's got his goggles on. He's literally weaving in and out as the soldier is firing, his M4 or whatever. Like he's like, those kind of, I love watching those things because those dogs are just so freaking cool. But like, that's not an energy level you want if the veteran is trying to get over that part of his, existence and training, because then that brings all that together. So I'm sure a more calm dog. Do you guys work with? So are you working with like a third party, and you guys are kind of primarily the donor in this case, or how does that, like, are you interviewing people? How is that working?
That's a great question. So what we've learned is there's incredible people at the operating level, and so we're not in the process of taking veterans and dogs, putting it together like internally in-house. So we're really raising funds and then deploying that strategically to organizations who can then do that. Like there's people who like I said, they spent 30 years doing this, right?
Right.
And so like for me to figure that out, like it doesn't make sense. Like let's see guys help now with someone who's already doing it, right? So like so for them, it's like finding these organizations. So we work with a ton. And then they're getting grants and things like that to help fund those service dogs for veterans. And we're also working on some kind of online training too, where it's like, because like the sad thing is like the weight. So the level of training will dictate how long it takes the dog to get ready for a veteran, right? So like some veterans 3 years, some veterans is 6 months, right? The wait lists are just ridiculously long. There's hundreds of people like this, and so we have to fill that gap too. So one thing we're working on is like online programs. So kind of while veterans are waiting, if they need a higher level dog for their trauma, they can at least start the process with their own dog or adopted dog and kind of start building that. Just start something. Like we found that getting them started somewhere is really, really important. So like we're trying to bridge that gap. And so we'll have online courses and things like that so they can do that. But I think it's active. I think that's the big thing, is keeping these guys active. And then the second thing is we're trying to develop really a place, like a community, because we know men in isolation, and that's a very hard place to be. It's a very dark place for a lot of guys when they get in their heads, and it's only them and their own, So like we see that a lot. So one of our missions is really trying to figure out how to connect these guys. Is it events? Like there's a lot of really great positive things for guys to get together and we'll do something fun. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys who are donating their time, saying, hey, come out, let's go hunting, like things like that. So there's a lot of those things that happen. So for us, we're very limited if we were just doing it ourselves. For us, we would help as many veterans as possible. So we fund all these organizations, and then they're able to execute way better than we could internally.
That's awesome. A buddy of mine works with a group called Irreverent Warriors, and they they got their little silky marches. Yeah. So a friend of mine is the guy that, and actually I've known him for quite some time. He's the guy that kind of started all that stuff, and so we've got one locally here in Montana that's a really fun, good buddy of mine. But yeah, doing the rucks and they wear those, like you said, the silkies. They've got those little. I mean, honestly, men should not wear those shorts, but like, dude, that's your thing, and that's kind of the identifying thing, right?
Yeah, it's like something like the fun part is like there is people. I think it breaks down a barrier pretty quickly. Like people it's already light showing up, like it's fun. Yeah. I think that's, and then so I mean, if you look at those marches too, it's incredible because you have a massive amount of diversity, right? And I think that's really the really cool thing is like they're all soldiers, So like you break down the barrier, you give them a purpose, you give them something, a community, and I really think there's so much great benefit from that, from people who understands like your experiences, right? Because I think that's what's missing a lot of times in isolation. People just don't understand. It's hard to explain, but people who do understand get it.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's that community that can happen.
Yeah. You have to have a shared experience, I think. And I think military service, especially if you're actually been in, a wartime scenario and those kind of things, I think that's something that, that very few people understand that. And obviously if you haven't done it, you can't really understand. So you're missing the vocabulary, you're missing, that level of camaraderie and all that. So having those guys is Have you found what, we're talking about men in isolation, and it seems like in talking to these guys that they have that camaraderie, but they tend to isolate themselves when they get back. So they need like some outside force to kind of push them towards that reconnection.
Yeah, no, it is, I think, because everyone kind of goes back to their own place, and we're not like, you're just not as connected, like you're living 24 hours a day with a group of people, and then you're not, and so there's definitely there's this kind of getting readjusted to where you are. But I just think a couple of things that I've learned doing this. One is, I think just by nature, men tend to self-isolate in general. And that's probably a broad stroke, but that's the guys that I deal with. It is, their wives tend to be the ones who do a lot of nudging, or their spouse or their significant other tends to be the ones, like you see a lot of that, like, hey, we need to, because they're seeing the impact, right? There's a lot of guys who just don't want to ask for help. They're like, just, they don't want to
man up, soldier up, whatever, right?
Yeah, like what's wrong with you kind of thing. And it's like nothing. It's like, you're processing this, like let's get with people who have processed it and are processing it, and let's, So I think it's part of inherently in. And again, there's women that have the same thing too. We have actually a lot of women that reach out as well. It's both, right? So it's not just guys, it's women, but it tends to be that it might be kind of a military-esque thing, like, hey, because you don't have time to like stop. You know what I mean? It's like, let's go. So there's just a lot of readjusting that has to happen, and we see a lot of isolation. The other, on Instagram, I had a wife reach out to me, and this is like really caught me off guard. She said, hey, I have something I want to send you. And I was like, okay, what is it? She's like, it's my husband's suicide note. And I was like, this is instantly, I'm just like, I don't even know how to process this, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I think you need to read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, all right. So when I read it, it struck me because he wrote it in it wasn't like this thought of like, man, this guy's like out of his mind, crazy, it was very coherent. I was really sad, right? This is sad. But the one thing out there was like, he was just saying I needed help, and I just felt like I could never find, like, I just never got I could never find someone to help me, or an organization to help me. Like, it was just like, get in line. And it was sad, but what it really reinforces this idea that there's absolutely a need for organizations to build a place and provide multiple opportunities to engage these guys at different levels where they are. And he never got a service dog or anything like that. Not saying that, that changed the outcome, but what I've seen many times is like, you have guys that have told me, hey, I've had a barrel in my mouth 3 times, like crazy stories. And it's like, the breakthrough really did happen in community, and it happened when they sought help. So it's whether they were dragged near by a spouse, was whether they finally said, shoot, at that moment, like, I need something. And they started somewhere. But like, there needs to be more opportunities for that. And so, really experiencing this and seeing this firsthand, just ignites a fire under us to like even do more.
Yeah. That's, yeah. And my daughter-in-law is a drone pilot in the Army, and she is getting ready to deploy to Syria in about a month. And, her job's a little bit different. She's not infantry, but they basically drop them in a box in the middle of the war zone, effectively. But still that kind of thing is, we're talking about real targets, and, it's not just training anymore.
Yeah.
And all that. So that's definitely something that we'll have to be aware of.
For sure. Yeah. I think that, it's, war is a psychological game. And there's a mindset when you have an objective and you're in the middle of it, it's hard to get out of. A lot of times for guys, the ones that so it's helping them just kind of process out of that, and so, everyone we work with, or we get inbound, we get so much inbound. It's like, it's hard sometimes because it's like, we can't help everybody. Like, there's just a limit.
Yeah.
Which it just kills us. But we just going to help as many people as we possibly can. I think that anyone who's now serves there later, there's just there is a sacrifice you do make, and you may not realize that up front, but that's really great, I think, to build organizations that provide it here at home where, once, everything's said and done, there's still a place to kind of resource up and connect with other people who understand.
Yeah, because there's no, like, when you start with a new job or whatever, you get onboarded. Like the military is super good at onboarding, and they're not so good at the offboarding.
Yeah,
the exit interviews is like, hey, thank you for your service, get your ass out, right? Like that's the that there doesn't seem to be that transitionary programming, so it's got to be filled, at least from a military standpoint. So it's got to be filled by private organizations, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there ever really is a good way to outboard, or just kind of decompress from war. I mean, if you think about history, people went to war, they literally hand-to-hand combat, and they went back and worked a bakery, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Yeah. So like, there is a psychological toll to war in general, to all those involved. And so, but I think what we've seen the most is that and every deployment, if you look at the history of military history, has been different, the impact,
Mm-hmm.
They call it the global war on terrorism, so the GWAT. It's
right.
The last 20 years, right? So like, if you look at that, that's really when you're serving the most right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a really prolonged period of time we were in kind of combat or defense mode.
Yeah, you have Iraq, then Afghanistan, and all these different conflicts, right?
Yeah, and so we lost a lot of lives. You have a lot of engagement, right? Like, it was these kind of things. So you just have a lot of people were just trying to figure out how to do life outside of that, and I think that because they did that, we feel like it's our obligation and it's an honor to figure out how to help them when they're home. So that's kind of that, that's really where it comes from. It's like, we say a lot of times internally, like, we try to serve those who served us.
Yeah.
And so we found out we could sell product online and use the funds from that to then ignite this and build this.
Yeah.
And so then we're excited to do that. So that's it's been an awesome path for us.
Yeah, I need to take notes. I have like 12 different brands and sell different things. So this maxed out thing is just one thing that I do, kind of like you have multiple brands and multiple companies. Yep. So I need to examine what I can do more from a business standpoint. But like, what do we do as individuals? Like, I get genuinely choked up to see a group of soldiers either coming back from deployment or deploying, not even people I know, but like just that, and I think we don't have as much of that in our country anymore, but that level of just emotional patriotism, I guess that you can call it. So how do we take that, like, and I joke with my daughter-in-law, and she's like, thank you for my service. She tells me that all the time. And there was a Navy SEAL that wrote a book. I cannot remember his name, but his title of this book is "Thank You for My Service," and I can't remember his name. But like, we kind of joke about it, but like, it needs to go well beyond that as an individual, because we can. And what do we do? Like, that's how can we serve these men and women that are coming back?
That's a great question. In our circle, what we've learned is that if we're intentional about how we direct resources, that's helpful. So like, supporting veteran businesses, I think it's a great thing, because you're able to be a part of their story after, and to make those intentional choices. Hey, I can get product A or product B, and both are really great. Like, I'll lean into this one because I want to support that. There's a lot of ways to do that now, where it's not like you're trading anything. You're just leaning into a sector that really would love the support, right? So I think there's some really intentional ways to do it that way. I also think that one of the best, I see the most reward for a lot of people if they, again, intentionally find an organization, like if they're really passionate about patriotism and they really want to support veterans, find either a local or a large organization, and just be a part of that however they can. That could be, hey, once a year we give $100 or something. something. That could be whatever, because you join a community of people like yourself, and there's so much value and momentum that can be built when you have a lot of people moving in the same direction. That's what we're seeing. And so for us, it's like our community, and I think we have right now maybe 400,000 people that have kind of shopped with us. And so like on the hero side of it, so like for them, that's our community, you know? So we're like, whenever we have something new, they're like, hey, I'm in, like whatever. We're saying, hey, well, what do you want? Like we're out veterans, like, hey, you're just talking about sports nutrition. Like, okay, do we go into, because like military is not fitness, and you know, there's a component of it. I know that's kind of your thing too, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, is it oversaturated? Do we create a product, you know, like that we offer that's really high quality, you know, like we have those discussions because we're always trying to find a way to help people lean into kind of their support, right? So if they're going to get it, like, do you want to get it from better owned business that actually was that, you know, where it's like funds clearly and visibly go back to help veterans in need. So I think to answer your question, I think it's really like, it comes down to what your level of commitment is. I do see people's lives with their eyes really open and really feel a lot of satisfaction plugging in somewhere in an organization in some form that is actively doing good for veterans. There's just you instantly feel like you're part of the solution at whatever level that you can be involved in, right? Like, so if it's just a little bit, that's fine too, because every single amount matters, right? Like everything matters. So I think that's how I've seen do it. I've seen a lot of people feel the reward that they were seeking it, but they were like, wow, this is really, I feel like I wanted to do it because I felt like I needed to, but I'm just feeling like, wow, this is like a part of a community, and I feel like I'm really passionate. Like they feel this separate passions they have around that.
Yeah.
And again, the impact is real, and the stories are real, right? And the influence is real, and what you get in feedback is real, and it's. So I think that's how I would recommend anyone who wants to lean into it. It's like, look, if you're on Amazon or buying something, cool. Is there a veteran-owned company that has it? Great. Yeah. Right. Like if you're buying a product, you're not, it's the same thing. You know, we're not saying pay $100 more for the same product. We're saying, you know, like just move intentionally, say, I'm gonna lean in this direction. That really does help.
Yeah.
So
and as kinds of things, is there, other than Google, is there a directory that you can find? Like, has anybody put together, like, these are predominant veteran-owned businesses that we,
yeah, that's a great question. There are some out there now. I've seen a couple rise up. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but like they'll reach out and say, hey, we're doing this. I think if you do search that, you'll find a couple. That is becoming, there's an awareness that's building where it's like, hey, like if I'm gonna push this money into the economy here, like I want to at least have a certain kind of impact, right?
Yeah.
So I think Amazon's starting to do it too, where like they're starting to award show veteran badges, veteran badges on products. So you'll start seeing more and more of that. I know at retail, what we're seeing too is like Walmart. We talked to Walmart and things like that. They're big into that. They have veterans initiative, which is awesome because they're leading from the front, where they're going to start showcasing stuff and saying, hey, this is a veteran-owned business. So there's really cool things like that happening. And if you search online, you can find them. Sometimes it takes a little more work, but again, a lot of times I'll tell the team too, like it's like the impact is there and it's worth it. It's worth another, few clicks to find something to support someone who's doing it.
Yeah. And I will say I sell a lot of stuff on Amazon, and I badmouth them because they're horrendous to sell through, quite honestly. Yeah. So if you find a veteran-owned company on Amazon, go see if they have a website and buy directly from them. You will save them headaches. They make more money. They can service you better. So like, and I speak as a guy that lives in the middle of nowhere, and we spend way too much money on Amazon. But I sell through them because it's like this mafia thing where like they come shake me down once a week if I don't. Yeah. So, so yeah. That's an important point to do that. But to your point, we did, so a couple of, like in September 11th, 2021, we did this was right after the Afghanistan pullout debacle crap that happened. Mm-hmm. On September 11th, we actually did a 13-mile ruck with a group of military people to honor the 13 soldiers that lost their lives during that debacle. And I'll just refer to it as a debacle because it was stupid. And so like being able to, I learned two things. First of all, or a few things, but They're hilarious to be around. Even on rucks, they drink way too much beer. I don't drink. And I was like, are you serious that this is your whole pack is filled with Coors Light or whatever it was. There's no water going into your system. That the alcohol doesn't really count. And then, but just that rewarding feeling of being involved in that camaraderie, and it's not like a wannabe kind of thing, but we gave a little donation or whatever to be a part of it, and then have that experience of actually carrying a ruck pack, which was, I mean, in our case, it was pretty light, but just going through that process and to be able to do that, and obviously with like an Irreverent Warriors, they do the rucks, but those are military only. And so you're not able to participate as a civilian, like myself. But that was a great opportunity.
Yeah. Those events are fun. I think you're seeing a lot more of that, and it's really cool when you see, like, sometimes it's just about like, let's keep guys together. Like I said, I've seen a lot of people who are in their kind of microcosms doing stuff. Like, they may not be able to be the next, America's nonprofit, but they're going to take guys shooting every weekend if they can, right? Or they're going to like take them and give them, take them out fishing and hang. Like, there's so many cool ways. I think it's if you, like, impacting in your circle is just as powerful because it compounds, right? So a lot of times I think people, the question we get is like, well, I can't do much. Like there's a feeling of guilt that's not enough for the sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's this feeling. What we tell people is that it does, anything moves this thing forward. Because like, some people can give a lot, some people can give little, some people give none, but there's just a support. And it reminds me, I had this guy reach out and said, hey, he sent me a business card to thank you for your service, right? And he sent me this note, like in an envelope. And it was like, hey, when I retired, I had to find something to do. And golf was too expensive, these things. He's like, so literally his job for retirement, he's like, I printed out business cards to say thank you for your service, and I give them to first responders and veterans. Like, wow, I do full time. I walk around and give those to them. And I was just like, this guy, this is how it's done. Like, you're just finding an area you can serve in. Yeah. And you may not even see the impact, but like, I mean, I'm telling the story because the impact to me, like, wow, this guy's, he's like, I'm dedicating my time, retire, to hand these out to people and know, well, we were thankful for them. And so I think there's always little ways, like, it doesn't have to be a grant or like a check. It could be, volunteering. It could be, encouraging word, those kind of things. So I think that no act is too small. They all compound. I think we can all be a part of that too. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I think we have a lot of really great people who are out, and there's a lot of really smart people who are building businesses and doing these things. And so finding ways to support them if your heart's there, it will go a long way for them.
Yeah, I have this thing with doing push-ups. I do push-ups every year on my birthday, whatever my age is, and I turn 50 and I can still do them. So, but I did I've done that 22 push-up challenge thing several times. And I think my wife actually, she will unfollow me for that month because she gets sick of me doing that. But now Wounded Warriors is doing this 1776 thing. I'm sure that you've seen that.
Yeah.
And I was almost thinking that if I do it, I actually want to send people to your donation page instead. And by the time this thing comes out, this won't even come out till like September. So it'll be over. So I can report back if I decide to do it. But I may end up doing that because it's just like, it gets me a way to think about those people every day. Like that's something that it's something stupid. Like in for 1776, you do 57 push-ups a day, which is not, it's not nothing, but at the same time, it's like, how long does that take? A couple of minutes. And then hopefully, maybe the people that don't unfollow me may want to go and give a little bit of money or join me or whatever. With the 22 challenge, so we're in the detailing industry too. I have a product in the detailing industry. And every year we sponsor and support this group that goes to the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and they detail Air Force One. This is like Kennedy's Air Force One, Reagan's Air Force One in that era. And I was happy to be doing the 22 challenge, and we actually I did I did push-ups with 3 veterans on the wing of Air Force One. That was really cool. And then and then there was about 60 of us, and I had one of the veterans actually lead us through 8-count military push-ups times 22. All 60 of us. And if you've never done an 8-count push-up, like it's a whole nother level of doing those. But that was probably 40% of the people that were on that project were veterans, or reservists, or have, some of them, actually there's a couple that were active duty at that time or did first responders or whatever. And it was just like this, I kind of get to be a wannabe, I guess, in that scenario, to where I get the kind of the camaraderie part of that, but get to kind of show my support as much as possible.
It's good. I mean, I think it's pretty rad to be able, it's, again, I think what I always go back to people is just whatever you can do. Like it is, we see it as an act of service, and we love it. So we're all they're doing ruck marches are really big, like you said, so we just had some people that are like, hey, we're doing this here, we're doing this there. And so we're in, we try to figure out how do we get involved. And the other thing we've done too is, which we may do, is we have, as an organization, we actually do a lot of disaster response.
Oh, okay.
It's in our DNA. So we do pet side and the people side. So for example, when there's a hurricane or there's a flood or there's a fire, we will fundraise pretty quickly, and we'll deploy resources, usually within 24 hours, fast, through nonprofits on the ground. And one of the things we've been talking about lately is that the next response, we may actually take a group of veterans down with us. I mean, to help, because it's we train these guys with a ton of stuff. Let's go. So doing kind of a rally point here at scene, say, hey guys, meet here, and we're gonna go in and deliver water for families, and all that kind of stuff. So we're always trying to find ways to connect with veterans and to use them, use their skills, and they're really powerful at they've done such a great job overseas. There's so many skills that we can use, and sometimes I feel like that's part of the challenge, is that they're just in the wrong place, right? They're not able to plug in their skill set. They're really good in the military in a certain area, and they come back and they have a hard time adjusting or finding. We have a lot of veterans who realize hey, I actually really like dogs, and actually like training dogs and I actually like training dogs for veterans. That's the coolest.
Both working scenario. Yeah.
And that actually happens more than you think, because they're like, shoot, I can do this. I can do this. It's yeah, you can. Let's do. How do we resource you? How do we get you activated? What do you need? So it's pretty cool. So again, anytime you can engage and do that with veterans, I think it's a lot of fun. I think that it's also it makes a difference. And every little piece does. So
yeah, and that's important. Like you said, even if it's a $10, if you buy something and then I bought another bracelet, not because I really need one, but because I wanted to. I was like, this is, because I just think it's really cool to be able to do that, and then throw in an extra $10. It's not like I'm giving $1,000 donation at this point, but yeah, it's one of those deals where if you can move the ball forward, you're still moving forward.
Totally. And so for us, so because we pass everything through, so any donations 100% goes to veterans. That's 100%. The products, when you're building product cost, you have to film the cost of these things. So we take 20% of the product, which is basically allows us to continue to market and build and hold inventory and things that goes in. So any donation is 100%. We're launching memberships too to follow that. So you can because we have a community, you're hey, I'll do something monthly. I have $10. Cool. let's leverage that for veterans, and then we'll be able to fund specific use cases, because we get stuff inbound all the time. It's hey, I have a veteran here, and there's a need right now. We need to get them engaged in something right now. Pretty urgent. And so we'll use those funds to say, all right, let's jump in for this guy. What does he need? What do we gotta do? Or his girl, right? What do they need? So we appreciate your support is really what it is. And that's been awesome. And people just like you have made such a big difference. We couldn't do it without you.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's obviously, it's like you said, it's, you always feel like it's like that little thing just really doesn't make that big of a difference, but you're still, you feel, hopefully feel good about doing it, and you're just trying to do something. That's kind of where I usually find myself. So that's herocompany.co, right? Is that
Yeah. That hero company, you can go to .com or the herocompany.com or the herocompany.co. Yep. Yep. So we have some really cool products. Like I said, we have a wallet coming out, a neat everyday carry kind of wallet, which I think is pretty rad. Again, the DNA and the genesis behind all this is like the first thought is like how we support more veterans, and we built a product we feel like we can move in the market that'll do that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's probably some artisans out there that can help develop product too. And, that
we're open,
get those guys involved. And so, yeah, hopefully with what we're doing here and what you guys got going on, hopefully we can figure out a way to support you guys as much as possible. But I do want to talk about, so that, that's an awesome part of it. But I was kind of stalking you a little bit on your LinkedIn this morning, and I felt a little called out because I do the cold plunge. I saw your morning routine. I saw your morning routine. So I'm going to walk through. So, Marshall was posted on his LinkedIn, kind of the comparison between his morning routine and other people's morning routine, which actually the one he was making fun of looks a little bit like mine. Although I don't do meditation. I do work out in the morning. I do cold plunge, all that, but so he's waking up at 5:30, 6:30 in the summer. He does his gym while his family's still asleep. I usually do that. Wake up. Here's the thing that I really like. Wake up my bride with coffee. I have been married for 28 years, and I still call my wife either two things: smoking hot wife or my bride. Those are her two names that she has. I almost rarely refer to her as my wife or whatever, unless it's a different context. So I love that you put my bride with a capital B. Say good morning, I love you to each member, take the kids to school every day, you journal, you read your Bible, and then you go get at it. So I love that is like, if you look at those impacts that you have on your family, your wife, and yourself, I think that's really cool what you do if that's your morning, if that's your general morning.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's not that I have tried the cold plunge either. That's in fact, I like the point. I think one of the things that I've seen, and I want to give people permission to, and just being in this world, seeing so many different people's routines, and we see a lot of it online, is that like everyone has their own rhythm, and that's actually one of the things that. So at Home Life, the reason it's called Home Life is we started the business because we wanted to build a business that not only had impact and gave back, like we talked about outside, but actually people inside could live a home life. Like the home life wasn't I have work and then I'm home. It's like we could find balance. So the whole genesis, so everything we do internally with our teams, it's around, that's why it's called Home Life, because we want to give people balance. Give people a safe place where they can enjoy what they're doing, use their skills, but also know that life has to happen too. It's not just like they're a worker drone and then you hope that their family gets the part of it. I mean, both Justin, who founded this, and me, really, that was the whole point. It's like we either were driving in traffic or we're going all the time. Right? It's like, there's just got to be more. So it's all about flow, and every individual, I think, has their own. And so we have a lot of self-imposed flow. So it's like, well, what are people doing right now? There's a lot of benefits to a lot of those things. There's some guys that can't do that, or some guys that have rhythms. And so I think my life, I've struggled with trying to mirror other people's flow, or it's feeling bad, like, well, I didn't get up at this time, or I did, but it's actually like everyone's is you got to find what works for you and your family, and like seasons change, nervous. So like your kids are a certain age and there's different engagement or different flow, and then, they change and there's different flow. And I think it's just more of doing everything well. And that's what that looks like for you. So, and again, we try to, that's one of the things we talk about here with the team. So we have, the people that work for us, we probably have 70 people total.
Wow.
And we have 45, would be in the States, probably the rest of it around the world. Right. Mm-hmm. And we try to balance that same kind of find your flow. Like some roles require someone to be in a certain place for a certain period of time, like there's shipping and orders and things like that. You order product, it comes in line, and then somebody in the team has to physically be there. A lot of teams, they don't. So we try to figure out how to manage and blend that, right? Like, when are you working? We try to give people responsibilities that aren't physically tied to a specific location. Really more of like, okay, well, we need this delivered by this date, not necessarily like hourly hours. the hour.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so that way people can kind of ebb and flow. And some people work better in the mornings and people will work better at night. Like, so all that to say is like, we're one of the things that I think I'm really aware of just from my own personal growth is like personal rhythms, home rhythms, things that are important to you. Cause it's like work is important, but like no one on their deathbed, would be like, hey, I wish I worked more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we try to like manage that, be aware of that. I think that's the genesis of that is that like, it's not wrong, right? Like you find your rhythm and that's right for you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those, like, I'm very regimented kind of a guy, and my wife, and I'm kind of one of those guys that can I just get a lot done. I'm just high functioning in that way. And it drives my bride crazy because she's like a 9 hour a night sleeper. I'm a 6.5 hour a night. And like, that's actually what I need. I don't do it because I'm like forcing myself to get up. Like, that's just how I wake up. And so she's like, you have this whole other life. I'm like, yeah, but it's like, kind of, but like, this is just how God made me. And so, yeah, you definitely need to find kind of your own thing. I love that philosophy for your company, because then you can kind of, and I've been self-employed for like 25 years, and I do work for a company now as kind of a part-time consultant. And so I kind of have certain hours that I say, hey, I'm available for WhatsApp or whatever during this time. But for the most part, I haven't had a real boss in a long time. So like I get to pick my, flow and times and all that. I the cold plunge part of it, I listen to Joe Rogan, and so he kind of got me interested in that. But we're in Montana, the water comes out of the faucet at 51 degrees because we're on well water. So I can actually just we fill up the bath. My wife and I both do it. And, 3 minutes. And that's, I kind of have a little prayer time, listen to worship music for those 3 minutes and suffer through it because it kind of sucks. But then it just it's just one of those, and I don't do it absolutely every day. Sometimes I'll take a break, but it does make me feel better and all that. So that becomes part of it. But
yeah, no, it's funny because I know some of my friends actually own those companies, like the plunge companies and all that. And it's not actually, I do enjoy what I've found too, I think, is that like everything rhythm happens in cycles, right? So like a lot of times I like, it's all about finding whatever cycle rhythm you're in. And online, I think what has a tendency to happen is like whoever's the most successful in that period of time kind of dictates the rhythm that you should follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, this is like what you should do. Like, for example, right now, a big one besides like that one specifically. And again, these are good things. Like, I love cold plunges. Like, I do them too, but it's not like I just, my routine right now.
Yeah.
I don't have
that. Not part of your day, not part of your daily.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like daily. Right. But like an example would be like, oh yeah, I'm going to build like, this is great. Like, I'm going to build a single person business. Cool. You're going to build a business, just you, like whatever. That's great. Awesome. Good for you. The thing is though, like, there are things you are missing out on too. Like you're missing out on contributing to other families in need, like who, you're missing on in creating a workplace or, a space for people to contribute their skills to build something together. Right. Like, so like, even though like there tends to be a lot of conversation at high level, online, especially health and wellness and these things where it's like, hey, these guys are successful. This is what they're doing. And absolutely they have something like success leaves clues. Right. But I think personally, because I spent so much time, I spent a lot of time thinking like, well, why can't I get that rhythm? Like, why can't I get these rhythms? And I spent more time worrying about why I wasn't good enough in doing these certain rhythms that were really public versus, hey, what works for you? And like, that's your DNA. And that's something I'm settling into more and more as I get older. It's like, all right, like my life is not like, I look at the, this lifestyle and it's like, I can pick and choose what works for me, right? Like a slow morning for my family is what they need, right? Like, so like for me, I'm up early too, right? I'm an early riser on purpose, right? And I get up. In the summer though, like they need me there longer, right? Like they like my wife sleeps in, so like they need me there in a different way. So like it's kind of adapting, and that may not be actually the most productive way. Like honestly, from business perspective,
yeah,
right?
Right.
That may not be like it may actually better to be out of the house at 5, but like it's really balancing what's really important to you at home, the business, and if you're building your own business and you can't run it the way you want to, like run your life the way you want to, like why are you doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
You don't actually own a business, you own a job. And that's what they always say, right? It's just if you're building a business that requires you to do things that you don't, if your whole day is stuff that you don't want to be doing, you just own a job. You might as well go work for somebody else and let them tell you what to do.
Right. I think that actually the saddest thing is like where it's like, oh my gosh, like they're burning everything, like they're just going nonstop. And like I watch entrepreneurs of that, and I know because I've been there that and it really, and even if you have a job too, right? Like it has a definite end. Like it can't last because something will break. It'll be relationships, it'll be family, it'll be your body, it'll be your mind. Like you cannot sustain that. And if you think about like, right? I mean, unless you're hit by a bus tomorrow, I mean, with medical technology, you're going to have, I mean, most people are going to have around 80 years. Like, it keeps getting better, roughly, right? Like, there's things that happen, but the aggregate population is going to have, you're looking 80 years. So, like, at 40 or at 50, I mean, you're only halfway through, technically, right?
Yeah.
If you take care of yourself. So, like, it is a marathon, and it is, you have to be okay, like, knowing that you're investing in long-term things, even though it doesn't feel like it in the short term.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I always talk about that, I want to build wealth or build money or whatever so that I can build a life with it. I don't want to use my life to build those things because if you're striving after money, there never be enough. If you're striving after status, you'll never be famous enough. All of that stuff, like, feed into yourself, your health and wellness and spiritual wellness and mental wellness, and all of those feed into your marriage. And I'm always like, God, self, God, usually with me, it's God, marriage, self, kids, right? Like and my kids are 25 and 23, and they know, and they've known forever that mom comes before them, cause they're out of the house now. And, and she's still here, which I knew I was like, I'm going to spend a lot more time with her than with you. And I told this joke, earlier in the podcast that Cosby used to say, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. I'll make two more that look just like you. It's so, but it's that whole concept that I spend all this time building my relationships with, my wife and my kids and all that. And it's just so much more important because and you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. We'll always be able to start something else and continue to grow something else. But if we lose our family, and I've been there, I was a workaholic and almost lost my young family back, 25 years ago. And thankfully, things really turned around, and we have, we're stronger every day and have a great family now. But like, I've been there, so I know that path exists, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. And I think ultimately, sometimes it takes those moments to realize like, whoa, like I got to shift, I got to change. And, because I don't know if I would have listened to that in the beginning either. I just shot out of the cannon, like, let's go. It's something that's hard to actually say, well, everything in me wants to like go do this thing, build this thing right now. But like, I have an 8-year-old who just wants to connect. Yeah. And there's days I fail, a lot of days I fail. And so the next day it's like, all right, like, how can I do this better? It's just a journey. But if you think about it over the long term of it, and how you navigate that, it'll look different. And I see the guy, and I built a really amazing network of really successful people. And one thing that I see the most in the ones that are the most successful, I think, is there is that balance, right? Like they're not the ones who are like, some of these guys, I mean, they are the ones, they have Ferraris. They like, it's not about that. It's more of like, but they're 2 weeks with their family, their phone's off, or like, they're like, their phone shuts off at 30, like these things, like, you can tell they're intentionally prioritizing certain things that matter, in the middle of success. And that's really hard to do. Like that's because your ego is your biggest overhead, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, so that balance, so I think that, so we look at it like, okay, we want this for ourselves, but like, we also want this for everyone else too, And so that's kind of the mission here too. It's like how we build a company, do all things we want to do, and then also make sure that, everyone here has a, a safe place where they say, I had some of my family, like, it's like, all right, like, we know, like, you should, like, those kind of things. So it's all, the word balance, that's a hard word to say. It can mean different things, but it really is prioritizing what matters, and you have to let go of other things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think balance is kind of a myth, but it's prioritizing the right things at the right times. That, it's just like multitasking. There's really no such thing as multitasking. You're just doing multiple things at the same time, one at a time. Like, you actually can't, it's really difficult to multitask. But like, we're bad mouthing Amazon, but I actually saw a little Instagram reels or something of Jeff Bezos, and he was saying how he never schedules meetings before 10. So because he likes to get up, exercise, and, and again, and who knows how Jeff Bezos takes his kid to school in like a spaceship or something like that or something. But like he's deliberately engaged in his family's life. And I don't know anything about Jeff Bezos, personally, but and this could be his second family or third family or whatever, who knows, But like, I mean, and I'm not saying that is, but what I'm saying is I don't know anything about him other than the concept of being, basically the richest guy in the world or one of the richest guys in the world, and still being able to take that time and to make that, even if he hasn't made it a priority up until this year, he's making that change. He's making a priority now.
Yeah, no, I think that's the stuff that matters. Like, that's the legacy part. That's thinking about it. I think, for example, I was reading this article similar talk about Elon Musk, who his whole thing is like, hey, my kids are going to sacrifice because I feel like I need to do this for the human race, like, or something.
Yeah,
like that,
right.
And that's a sad statement, because the human race really just needs more really good people with money who can change the world.
Yep.
Right. Like, so.
And dads, I mean, honestly, I would, I live in a world where we're around a lot of female tradespeople. My wife is a badass off-road racer and baker and all these things. So I don't ever discount how powerful women are. However, we just came out of Father's Day this last week. We need powerful men to be dads in their kids' lives, because it's like, if he's got 5 or 6 kids or whatever, they have more money now than most people will ever, than will live in 100 lifetimes. So how do you teach those kids about being better humans through your ability as a dad? And we can't judge I'm not going to judge Elon Musk.
No, I get that too.
Having that is like his legacy there, versus sending more people to Mars. It's kind of it's like, pick which.
Yeah. No, and I think if you ask the question, would you rather have, like, most, like, would you trade $100 million for 10 years with your kid? Like, I mean, like, I pay $100 million and you don't see your kid for 10 years, or you say no, and you like. We don't. I think that with things that are like, especially like family and these investments, and is that they don't pay a return in interim a lot of times. Now they do. Like, you have those moments where you're like, wow, they just got that. Or like, oh, you love me too? Like, that's,
yeah.
Especially as a teenager, right? You're like, where did, like, but it's one of those things where you show up. You have to show up. So as dad, you have to show up. And so, like, one of the things that we try to do consistently is that, like, we take the kids to school together. My parents both work and not a fault of their own. Like, most people can't. Like, we're able to do this. So it's like, I remember whenever my dad showed up, it was like the coolest thing. Oh, shoot, my dad's here. You know what I mean? So, like, we try to be almost annoyingly present to them. To the point where, like, they're like, dude, like, what, like, what parents are here again? Like, so, and we try to do that together. And so that's actually, and so we have an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old. So we're like on this cusp of like this.
Oh yeah, you're right in the middle, right at the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning. And it's been really awesome because we spent a lot of time together. And like intentionally, we spend a lot of time. So with guys, I read the psychological study a while ago, where it was like, or with psychology, it was about like guys and shoulder time. That's how they like. So with girls, it's FaceTime. So
Yeah.
So the female, it's like face to face. It's how they connect. Guys, it's shoulder time, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time together. And I know that there's like, as they get older, as you know, like things, they start going out in the world, things happen. We're just like focused right now on this. So like again, going back to what I said, it's like right now as a dad, this is how I can serve and show up. And it may look different over time, right? Like I had a mentor of mine told me that once they get to a teenager, you really move from a dad to almost like kind of like a peer as they get older as a teenager. They're like, hey, because they start, you want to be available. Like they got to make choices. And you want to be available for them for that and not make the choices for them, right? Like there's a lot of choices they have to make on their own. You want to be an advisor, like, hey, what do you think you should do? Like how do you, so like you're changing, as a dad, but like if you're not showing up, like especially when they're younger in those years, right? Like to think they're going to come back and say, hey, this dude never showed up, right? Like I'm going to ask him stuff for critical moments where I feel like, in my life, it's not going to happen. Right. So like, I think dads do need to show up. And I think that, father in the home, the radically changes the trajectory of the households in many ways. Like this is proven in data, right? Like a lot of ways. An example, because so I think it's really important. And I think that there is definitely a lack of understanding or a lack of emphasis on like how important it is. Now moms are important too. So we've already covered that. Like we marry up and like, they're a better house.
That's right.
Like,
right.
They have a harder job. We get this. But I think that you're right when you say like there's the home is really made to have to be co-parented, in the relationship between the mom and the dad, or however it's set up, is going to be the most important relationship that they see, because they're inferring a lot. They're looking at it, they're watching it, right? And then because they're gonna think like, I don't think about it subconsciously, subconsciously I think this too. I mean, I didn't realize it's like when I think about something like, did my dad show up? Right? Like like it's just this thought process, like, oh yeah, well that's what I do because that's what I've been taught. That's what I've been shown.
Right.
So I think you're right. It's incredibly important. And so like, as you grow kids in this world, if you want the world to be a better place, we've got to make sure the generation's there to make sure that happens. And so we can lead by example. I think that's really the way. If you tell them one thing and you do another thing, it's just not gonna penetrate.
Yeah, I got 100%. I got an amazing text from my youngest, who's a paramedic in Atlanta, 23 years old, and she's made some less than awesome choices for her boyfriends, and actually just got out of a long-term relationship that I was not a fan of, and but she wrote me this text, and this also speaks to the importance of being a part of your kids' lives, but also how you teach your kids about marriage and relationships. We were told that when your kids are kind of in that teenage years, getting ready to kind of leave the house and stuff, that you need to be two things: a launching pad and also a home base that they can always feel like they come back to. And it's funny because my daughter actually, referenced that. She said, thank you so much for being both the launching pad and a place that I feel safe to come home to. That was the first part. Like, I'm bawling at this text, but, and then she said, also, I know that I haven't made great choices in terms of my relationships. And I'm thankful that you and mom have the relationship that you do to teach me what those relationships are supposed to look like. And then, like, dude, I'm going to cry right now. But she was saying, thank you for being the example of what I want my husband to be. And I was like, holy cow, right? Like that's like one of the greatest things you can hear from your kids. So
yeah, and that's mature at that age. Like it's really mature. Like I don't know how I sent that text yet to my that's really good. I mean, that's like that's those moments where like you're like, you hold your breath, you're like, all right, and then you're like, okay, cool. Like there's a foundation that I built. Like it's there. Like they may be trying to figure out what it looks like for them, but like they have a foundation.
Yeah.
And the launching pad and home base is such a great way to explain it. It's like, we're gonna help you get out, but we use a safe place to come back to if you fail or if you need something or you need help.
Yeah.
Which is really good.
Yeah, there, and I mean, I'll admit right now, and she would agree with you that I could be such a dick, right? Like I was a hard dad. I'm not as emotionally available as I need to be, you know, all of those things. So like, I'm not saying that this text was sent as a result of 20 plus years of amazing fathering, you know. So
No, but it's like there's stuff that matters. The stuff that matters is there. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
we're all learning, and we all fail. You know, and it's like it's just the only thing you can do is move forward, right?
yeah,
And that's it.
yeah. Try to do the best you can. Well, Marshall, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I'm gonna try to figure out some ways that I can support you guys more, you know, in my little ways, and then try to use what I'm doing in the way that you guys are using what you're doing to support, you know, veterans.
Yeah, if you want to brainstorm, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks very much, man.
Cool. I appreciate you. A great time, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, bye.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.